Okay. Just started recording. There we go. Okay. Can everyone see my Canvas dashboard?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So again, thank you all for being here, taking time out of the day again to walk through Canvas. Much appreciated. And an even bigger thank you to everyone on here who has completed their professional development hours for the CIE licensure. It's absolutely stunning to me that everyone got these completed, took these workshops that were offered over the last few weeks. I understand if perhaps Lynette and Anna made you feel like you didn't have a choice. Can understand their tactics. But honestly, it was very, very impressive to see how everyone just jumped right in. And we had some interesting topics: the dimensions of wellness, the violence risk factors with an intimate partner, microaggressions, both in English and Espanol. All of these recordings are available. So if you haven't seen the link for it and you'd like to go back and watch these, you can still get the professional development credits for them. And they're great topics to jump back to. So please, while we're going through this, if you have any questions so you don't lose your place, feel free to pop them into the chat. And once you've popped them into the chat, I'll find some time at the end and we'll go through them just like we did last time. And again, I'm recording this, so once we wrap everything up, just like we did last time, I will send out modules 4, 5, and 6. Modules 1, 2, and 3, if you weren't here last time, is available for viewing. We're going to do a quick refresher over that, not too long, just so everyone can kind of get their minds back into it. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. All right. Here we go. We'll jump in. So this is the Canvas dashboard for those who weren't here last week. We go into a bit more of this in module 1 as to the different features here, but I wanted to show again the global navigation here on the left-hand side. This applies to the Canvas environment. When we get into the class, we'll see the in-class navigation, which is a subset. It typically appears right here when you're in a class. And that is the in-class navigation. And here again are our course tiles, which let us jump into whichever classes that we have available to us. We've got our to-do list, and we've got some to-do items over here. That's where you're going to see any items up for grading. For students, they're going to see any items that are due for submission. Anything coming up if you're using the calendar, which is in module 2. Setting that up, the calendar, you can set it up with personal events in addition to all of your course requirements that automatically populate. And you can see what you've got coming up. And then recent feedback, if you've received a grade or given a grade to a student and there's the back and forth on the feedback, that's all right there. And we're gonna get into grades right off the top here. But our main overview today, and again, I'll jump into our walk to class course. We're on the home page, and right now I'm not going to go into student view just yet until we kind of go through some things, just so I don't run into any access denied messages. So we'll start with the modules. Again, this is the in-course navigation menu. So global applies to everything. In-class navigation applies only to the class that you are in. Jump into modules. I find modules to be the sort of express lane for Canvas navigation. It's the easiest way to map out everything, to go and see what these sections of the course are. And like I said last week, we went over the welcome to Canvas, how to introduce yourself and your communication preferences. So how to set up your profile, how to make sure that you're getting notifications, how to set up your virtual classroom, putting files into your class, files into your profile to share among classes, announcements, syllabi, things like that. And creating lessons using discussions, how to create quizzes, any of the lessons and assessment tools. So that's what we've gone over so far. Today, as you can see, we're going to go over grading, collaborations, and then this final module, which is really, it's an overview definitely of the preceding 5 modules, but it also adds in certain elements that are specific just to the AGMU environment. So right now we're using roll call attendance, which will connect with dropout detective. We'll get into that in just a little bit. How we're exporting grades to Banner, and then as we sort of move forward into Campus Nexus, how we'll be doing that. How to post our welcome announcement, which is going to be one of the biggest requirements for instructors. And then, as you can see, we're, as we come along with other things that might need to happen, I wanted to leave space for myself to create more pages and updates, because this is by no means a static course. This is something that grows. This is something that lives. It's a living, breathing course. We'll be making sure that we, continue with updates, continue with anything that comes up. If we need to add a section, if we need to remove a section, whenever an edit is made in here, anyone enrolled in the class, and as I mentioned last week, and we'll mention again now, faculty who are enrolled in this class never lose access to this. So it's not something that you learn, and then once you've completed it, it goes away. This is something you'll be able to refer back to at any time. So you will get the notifications when we make changes to any content or any pages, so that you can get yourself up to speed rather than having to see something on a bulletin board or read, yet another email. It's a bit more interactive with the content. So again, today, grading, collaborations, and then our AGMU Canvas capable final module for this course, or current final module. Who knows? Maybe we'll add more things along the way. That's the idea, right? Everything grows. So again, to touch upon what I mentioned last week, is we're still having a bit of trouble with making sure that everyone has Canvas access. Some of you may have Canvas access and have already started to jump into this since the invite was sent. And for others, that's a bit of a work in progress. Since we're bringing on all the other campuses between Metro Orlando and Tampa Bay, we're putting a lot more attention into this. I've had to make sure that our Canvas administrator and our IT teams are communicating with getting everyone's record correctly ported into Canvas, so that you have time to jump in before we start using this in January for all the English programs. So it's just English programs will be using this starting in January. Spanish programs, bilingual programs will be using this further on in the year, right around May. We didn't want to do that change midterm and have some people in Blackboard and some people in Canvas. It just wouldn't have worked. Would have been confusing for us, and it definitely would have been confusing for all of you as well, and certainly for the students. So just made more sense to not do that. All right. So we will jump in. I will enter student view so that we can see what you're going to see. And here we are. So this is the home page for those of you who weren't here last week. This is your course homepage. Every course has a homepage. It welcomes you to the course, gives sort of the pertinent information, an overview, draws people in. One of the first things I'll mention, if you're not using Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, Canvas will still work, but through a lot of trial and error and a lot of features that have been enabled, Chrome and Firefox are the best way to go with using Canvas. So I would highly recommend downloading those, and I've added the links here to the homepage so that you can do that. If you're using another browser, if you're using Edge or Internet Explorer or Safari. We've got our navigation down here, and we've already gone through the welcome. how to introduce ourselves, the virtual classroom, and the creating lessons modules. Those were all in last week's session, which feels like ages ago, doesn't it? So now we're going to jump right into grading. Okay. So obviously this is something that's paramount. We give grades here. We're an educational institution. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is, not solely students regurgitate information to us and we just slap a grade on it and move on. That's obviously going to help anyone learn. There are a lot of different layers to grading in here, be it from the rubrics that are set up or will be set up for every assignment. Those are very clear for students to see when they access an assignment page, and we'll look at that in a moment, to what we give as grading feedback. So, we're not just saying, great job, here's a grade. That doesn't really help. Sometimes it's the only thing you can say, because sometimes students just do a great job and you can give them a grade. Other times, you have to lend some context to it. So if they've got, maybe the concept, but they just, lack some mechanics in their grammar, that's a fine point of feedback. And you can obviously denote in the rubric and the speed grader where they lost points there. Just provide them with, an understanding of what they can do in future assignments, even if it's not in your class, to sort of improve those skills and become, a better student, a more effective student. So I'm pretty sure that's why we all got into this, is to help students grow and learn. So let's start right off. Again, we have a number of navigation options here, from using the modules, the superhighway method, to using the page navigation, which is just by clicking next, will take you through every page in the modules in sequence. Or if there was something, if you wanted to cherry pick and jump around, you could click the links on the main page. Really, a lot of different ways to get to the same information. And that's last week, the best feature of Canvas, but perhaps the most aggravating feature of Canvas is there's really no set way to say, do this and go this way, click this button. A number of different options will take you to the same information. You can sort of define how to get to certain things. There's really no wrong way as long as you're going to the page you're supposed to be going to. And again, I'll mention, as I did last, this banner up here is the breadcrumb trail. It shows, sort of where you've gone and how to get back to where you were going, or from where you came from. So right now we can see we're on the grading learning plan. So the first page of the module, we can go back to the course page, the home page itself. We can go back to the list of pages, or we can use the in-course navigation to jump around to different areas. And this is our wonderful, as we have with every module, this is our speed grader, or our grading module badge. So every time we reach the end of a module and we've completed all the requirements, taken the self-check quizzes if there's one assigned, submitted any assignments if they're assigned, and they're not, as you will see, they're not really time-intensive assignments, because obviously we don't want this to detract from what you're doing in your classes already or from your professional or personal life, just to get a sense of Canvas. But once you get the badge, you've earned some credit for this module. They're fun. It's a little way to add some, as they say, gamification to the learning process. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and do the page navigation. We'll jump right into groups and weights. So we touched upon this last week, and I'll say it again. The information in here is broad spectrum. I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable in their ability to facilitate or instruct an online course. But I also want to acknowledge the professional development. So while there might be aspects that don't necessarily apply to what is required of you as an AGMU instructor, There are areas that I've left in here for you to become cognizant and a bit more proficient in Canvas, to broaden your skill set. Obviously, as I said last week, and I know this is recording, so I will say it again, I don't necessarily want you to take those skills somewhere else and take your talents somewhere else. However, I do want to acknowledge that while you will use Canvas here as your primary learning management system, or LMS, I understand that being an adjunct team member, you may be teaching someone else. If you're a full-time faculty member, I would think you're not. You're most likely teaching just for AGMU. But I want you to be aware of this tool and be able to get some more value out of it, rather than just, this is how we're doing things, only learn it that way. I want to kind of show you the whole big picture, rather than just what we might be doing. To your point, the grading schemes and the course rubrics and things like that, and assignment groups, typically be defined in the course template that you are assigned to once you're in Canvas. If you're the subject matter expert who helps to develop the course curriculum and the syllabus and the assignments, you'll have a bit more say over certain things. But for the most part, you will have all stuff defined, so you don't need to go in and set up a grading scheme or set up a rubric or change the course outcome. Well, that will be sort of ready to go for you when you jump in. But I want you to be able to understand what Canvas is capable of, because as we grow with it and as we all be more comfortable and proficient with it, there will likely be the ability for us to open up to a broader spectrum, because we want to borrow on the idea that you all know what you're doing and are great instructors and faculty members to help build courses and shape course content. So better to teach you to fish now than to tell you that fish exist and not tell you how to do that. So again, like last week, for those of you who weren't here, I've put in and leveraged all of the Canvas guides and information that exists, because while I may know quite a bit about the system and in my decade plus of experience with it, I would like to think I've learned a lot. I learn something new about Canvas every single day, and I do that by sort of treading in areas where one has treaded before, understanding that I can go to the video tutorials and get a bit more knowledge. I can go to the Canvas community guides and find this information out. I don't need to know how to do everything immediately. Obviously, this is as much a learning experience for anyone in Canvas, because any day you might be asked or faced with a situation where you need to do something that you have no idea how to do. So I've left these video tutorials in wherever applicable. I've put in the specifics for the AGMU information. But again, because grading rubrics and schemes will be set up, this is a little bit more of a preview as to what else can be done with Canvas. All right. Student view, as I am in right now, is going to be an option for anyone in the environment when you're an instructor in a class to see your class, see your content, see everything as a student would. That's why I'm presenting in this mode right now, and I'll have to leave it for a few things as we get through, because there are certain things you can't see in student view, because obviously students have a different permission level and a different role in the course in the classroom than an instructor does. That's why I'm presenting here in student view, because I want you to be able to see this the same way that you'll see when you log in, because you are a student in this walk to class. So there's test student, that's someone automatically enrolled in your grade book. So when you see a test student in your grade book, there's no need to fear. That's not it's not someone whose name is, you know, test comma student or student comma test. It's a placeholder for this student view so that you can use it to navigate around and check anything that check from a student's perspective, or operating here as a student in case you run into any issues. It's, you know, it's a useful tool, especially when students may come to you and say, you know, I don't see this, I don't see that. And sometimes we forget that we might have a different permission level than any student. And so I typically, when I get that, I jump into student view and go, okay, am I missing something here? Did I set something up incorrectly? You know, was something in the course set up incorrectly? Can I still see it as a student? Is it the student overlooking it? And kind of troubleshoot that idea. So that's student view. The speed grader. Speed grader is an excellent way to really streamline the grading process. It's available in both the browser-based version of Canvas and in the Canvas instructor app, teacher app. And it's fantastic when you have work that's submitted rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time. We'll look at it in just a moment with some of the examples of what's been submitted here. But as this breakdown shows, you know, it's everything in one window rather than have bank through a number of windows or tabs. Everything's right there, and its color could, you know, again, allows the instructor to see what they have to grade. So you'll be able to see what you have to grade, who has turned things in, who hasn't turned things in, things that you have graded, things that are ungraded. All of that is sort of in this very nice heads up display. And again, the idea that you can use the rubric rather than having to remember, you know, what your criteria are for a good assignment or a worthy assignment. You can just click through the rubric, and as you click through the buttons, you know, that logs in the number of points. So for the moment, I will leave student view. I will go ahead and jump in here to find. So yeah, we'll go ahead and use Dr. Burkhart. There we go. All right. Excellent. As I mentioned, the quote unquote grades in here in this course, you know, if you notice, I'm the instructor for this course, and I'm just looking for a submission. You know, obviously it sort of walks you through how to complete certain tasks and certain assignments. You know, the first one, customizing your profile, is pretty simple. If I don't see a profile picture, clearly you haven't done it and you don't get the badge for that. But I've set this up so that, you know, I'm not being obtrusive with people being able to get in, learn, quickly do the assignments, quickly do the exercises to better your Canvas knowledge and your appearance in Canvas, and not have to worry about, well, you know, I did this 3 days ago and Bill's been on vacation and now I can't get a grade. No, I can't get this. So you'll notice that some things, you know, quizzes that are in here, you know, will be automatically graded. That's just done, you know, it just keeps the highest score. But then other assignments may not be graded, discussions may not be graded, because as long as they're completed and it's logged in here, which it is for all of these areas, that's substantial. That's you know, good enough for me. That's to say that you've done the content. We can always spot check something, and we can always go over something if you have any questions while you're in here. So you can see this is a student's grade book. This is what we would see if we looked at a student through the people menu. When we're in a course, we would see all of these grades laid out. We could see submissions, we could see scores. This is also what the student sees on their page. So they'll be able to see what's been submitted, what's graded, what's not graded. So anything graded would have an actual grade. Anything just submitted would have either if it's a discussion, it would have the dialogue box. If it was an assignment submission, it would have the assignment box. Or web pages if they've submitted screenshots, web pages, all of that are denoted by these icons, which are explained a bit more in depth in the grading module. So let's go ahead and go to customizing the profile. We can see what has been. This opens up in a new page, but you can see that that was a file that opened up. And that's perfect. I can see that there's a submission here. I can add a comment. I can add a media comment if I wanted to do a video or an audio file. If I wanted to say, well, hey, you didn't really put in a profile. Here's what a profile looks like. I can attach a file, and all of this would go right back to the student, letting them know that I've graded it, I've looked at it, I've reviewed their assignment. So that's one area where we can add feedback. On this page also, you'll see when the assignment was submitted. So if there's ever a question about a student saying, I submitted that on time, well, as much as we'd like to believe them, we can very easily see here that the assignment was submitted at a specific time. It's time-stamped to when they submitted the assignment through their browser. So it's kind of irrefutable evidence of when an assignment was submitted. So there's no more sneaking it under the doors, as many of us probably did, or hopefully did not do while we were in college, or any program of higher ed is to try to get away with a quick one. As I mentioned, students get the rubric on the assignment page when they access the assignment. We'll look at that in just a moment to see exactly what that looks like. But on our end, here is the speed grader. And as you can see, I'm not going to click any of these because if I do, they'll attribute points to the assignment. But it opens up here. And really, it's a very simple one for this. It's a very simple assignment. Basically, it doesn't go into many of the specifics because really putting a profile picture in isn't really a labor-intensive activity. Either participant fulfilled all the requirements and gets 10 points. Some of it, maybe they access the page, maybe they just put up, a pretty picture of a flower. Well, okay, if that's what you want for your profile, but the profile is really all about letting people get to know you in a digital space. So that's where we would maybe lose some points. And then obviously 0 points is just they didn't do it at all. The date's come and gone, nothing is submitted, or if they submitted it, they submitted us a text file, and obviously a text file is not a profile picture. So pretty simple to denote where they would get no points. All we'd have to do is click these, whatever corresponding box for whatever criterion we have. And once we do that, it would auto-fill the points. We just save it, and the student gets a grade. That's as simple as that comes. To see exactly what the rubric looks like for the students, there are really two ways. Jump back into student view here. There are two ways that this can be done. For this course, I've set it up in one way, which is that it just shows right here on the main page of the assignment. So customizing your profile, this is where the student would go, or this is where you'll go to upload your assignment to your proof that you put in a profile picture. And this just outlines exactly what we just saw. It's the same exact thing. And that's exactly what will happen in the speed grader. Is the rubric for the assignment is the rubric for the speed grader. So there's no difference between the two. So you'd be able to just click through. The student would be able to see, okay, if I do this and for certain assignments that are really credit bearing, I should say, these explanations might be a little bit more fleshed out They're be expanded upon, where they tell you exactly, 3 sources for APA, from credible areas, or it needs to be, X amount of pages, X amount of words. All of that in here will be denoted so that when the students hear, they can see, okay, this is where I'm going to get all my points. This is where I might lose points. The second way this might appear in the course is it could be in, and I'll jump out of student view for 1 second to show this. In this ellipses right here, occasionally the rubric gets put into there, but it will say on the assignment page where it is. If it's not, as overt as this, and again, I wanted to make this kind of easy. If it's not as overt as being right here on the main page, if it says, the rubric can be found, on this page, it's typically up here in these ellipses. So that is a quick walkthrough of the speed grader. Very easy to click right through, grade assignments, get students their feedback in a timely manner, start the conversation if there's, anything bigger that you want to discuss with the student. All of that is available here. And again, I put out there the guides on how to use this for the Android app, the iOS app for Apple users, because it doesn't have to be just specifically in a browser. If you're in front of a browser and a computer all day, that's fantastic. If you happen to, have a smartphone, and I know they're kind of ubiquitous at this point, you can always do these things in the app and, and get through them that way too. It really does lend itself to some customization. I'm going to jump back into modules here, and I'll leave student view yet again. There we go, because the rest of this module, I just wanted to hop. I didn't think we needed to go through the actual using the speed grader assignment as we just walked through it, but I just wanted to hop over quickly to the Canvas gradebook. Jump back into student view. Okay, perfect. So the gradebook, as just as much of a tool for instructors as it is for students. We just saw in our last example what a student gradebook would look like and what sort of the generic outlay of a gradebook is. It's just, an outline of the required assignments, discussions, quizzes, whatever submissions are credit bearing in a course, outlined, in a big long list essentially. But that's the individual view. That's what students can see. There's the other view of the gradebook, which is on our end, the faculty and instructor side, that has just a few more things. It's a bit more of a heads up view. So obviously, you can see that there's a lot more going on here. In addition to what we're going to see in just a moment, which is the gradebook view for this whole class, which I'll have to leave student view for again, because that's really only an administrator thing that you can see, or an instructor thing really that you can see. You can also set your late policies for missing and or late submissions. That's important because you may have students who have an approved late submission. Maybe it was a medical situation. Maybe they just have a wonderful story and have pulled at your heartstrings and hit you at that right moment where you're able to give some amnesty. Or maybe it's just, you have one policy and it's, X amount of days, after the assignment submission deadline, you won't accept anything. Well, that's, entirely up to you. I know obviously there are, institutional policies in addition to what our personal preferences might be. And so as long as we're adhering to the institutional and the university policies, we have some leeway as to what, we will accept as instructors. So that's something that you can set up here on the gradebook page. So I will leave student view for a moment. And in the in-course navigation right here, you can see grades. So I will hop into this, and this brings up our grade book. So again, this is a larger course with just one section, so it's a little bit intimidating. But again, like I said, I'm not going through and specifically having to, these aren't credit-bearing assignments necessarily. So, you know, that's that's not something where I am overwhelmed when I look at this. Typically, you know, our classes might have, you know, in class a smaller number of students, or they'd be broken up into a number of sections to keep this organized, to keep this a little bit, you know, set up in a way that doesn't cause a bit of a panic attack when you see it. But you can see here just a big 30,000 foot view of all the students in the course, all the assignments right here, what type they are, what their weights might be, how many points the max points are. And then as we get to the end here, you'll see, you know, hey, for assignments, this is a tally of each student. For assignments, this is 40% of the grade. This is what they've got. Discussions are 40%. And then the final course assessment, whatever the makeup here, this is just a generic one that was set for this specific course. You know, your course might be different. It may have a midterm, it may have a final. You know, you may not have discussions, you may have more assignments. You know, that is entirely fine. Whatever they are, they'll be outlined here with their total weight, and that will tell you how well the student's doing. And this is something the student can see, and I'll go back to that in just a moment. And this is something the student can see on their side of the page as well. So when they're looking at it, they're seeing the same exact thing. They know all the assignments are 40% of the grade. They know the discussions are 40%, and they know the end of course assessment is 20. Whatever they decide, you know, whatever is decided for your class, what the weighting structure is, will be denoted here. And students have the option to calculate, you know, their grade if they want to see all the positive things. You know, calculate based only on graded assignments. I encourage students to check this early in the class and then to uncheck it as you go further into the class. Early in the class, it makes sense because, you know, you don't want to see all of these zeros, because if I uncheck that, well, all of a sudden that student's not doing so well, and that can be a bit discouraging. So I encourage students to keep this checked until they sort of get into, really with a 5-week course, I would say, you know, week 3 is a good time to uncheck that. You know, maybe week 4, and then with the 8-week courses and kind of 8 and 10-week courses, you know, week 6 or 7 is a good time to uncheck that. And the reason I suggest that students do that is because at that point, you'd be able to very clearly see what your final grade is going to be. For all those zeros that maybe you didn't hand things in throughout the term, you know, now instead of seeing just the one great grade, let's just say this is the only assignment this student handed in, and the rest of the class was, you know, 0, 0, 0, 0. Well, they might think, all right, I've got a 90, I'm going to ace this class. Well, no, you haven't handed anything else in. And so when we divide it out, this one assignment is not enough, is not substantial enough to carry you across the entire course as far as a passing grade. So students can see that. They can check and uncheck the calculate based only on graded assignments. And as far as, you know, the retention team goes and the student success team, they're aware of this to let students know that this is something they can toggle on and off. So students will see those totals again on their main grade page. We'll see them here in the grade book, and as the course goes on, we'll see a running total calculated out over the number of assignments that are graded. That's sort of the default here. You can search for assignments, you can search for students, you can bring up anybody that you want to see or any assignment that you want to see and go, hey, you know, did everyone hand in this assignment? Is there anybody missing that? You if you're trying to kind of audit your own grade book, or if a student is saying, no, I handed that in, rather than digging into all the submissions, the grade book tracks that for you. So again, we've got the individual grade book, which we can go through and see, every individual student, see the grade book history, which is when students signed or submitted things. Again, rather than having to go to every single assignment, you can do another search, find the student, find the date they submitted something, find the assignment, all of that. This is just more hierarchy for us to look through and find. Oops. No. There we go. To look at how our students are doing. Did they submit the assignments? Are we missing anything? No, we're not missing anything. But students might be concerned because they thought they clicked submit, or they thought they submitted something and it's just not here in the system. Technology does cooperate really when it wants to, but here we have a pretty fair sense of when things were handed in and what things were handed in, really. So again, you can choose what you arrange it by, how you want to arrange it. This is all customized to what you want to see in your course. You can see basically anything that exists in this course and filter it however you want to see it. And import or export grades is a bit further on. We're not doing a lot of work with that to import grades just yet. When we get to using Hill Connect, if and when we start doing that, or any other third-party areas, MindEdge, things like that, we may need to do the import, but that would be connected to the course, and so it shouldn't be a hard task to pull that stuff in. And as far as exporting, we'll get to that in just a little bit with looking at the Canvas capable module that has how we're exporting grades to Banner. All right, so it was a very long time on grading in the grade book, but obviously that's a very important area of focus. We want to make sure that we know how to submit grades, we know how to grade assignments, we know where we can go looking for things to make sure that we have everything that a student has submitted, we've graded everything that we need to do, making sure that to-do list comes up empty almost every time we log in, keeping ourselves on top of that. And also, as you can see, collaborations, our next stop on this Canvas tour, is not really a very lengthy area. It's important, definitely, because this is a digital space, but there aren't many items need to cover here about how we can students can collaborate, how we can facilitate collaborations and things like that, if they exist in your course. And that's why I didn't want to spend too much time here, is because not every course is going to have group work. Not every course is going to have collaborations. There are some that do, and they'll use these features. And then other classes, these will just be sort of tertiary resources that we can use, if we see fit, or students can use if they feel the need, if we are breaking them into groups. So in our groups, hang on, let me just find people here on the side. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So in groups, in our classes, if we have group work that we want students to do, under the people menu, which again will be visible to you because you're the instructor, but as you can see, it's not visible to students because we don't necessarily have anything set up in there for them just yet. We can go to the people menu and set up different groups, set up different group sets. The group sets, think of those as sort of the big piece. So if this is section 1, section 2, whatever you might have, you want to break the class into, sort of there are multiple sections inside of the class. If you have a very large class, you'd set up a group set. Every course is typically going to come with a subset just titled students. That's the hierarchy of things that they have. And then inside of those group sets is where you would set up the actual groups. So you would click your group, you would set up the name. So maybe, your an ops management course, and these are the students working on the business case. These are the students working on the final presentation. These are the students who are working on the accounting aspect of things, the financial reports. However you want to chop things up and put those groups in there, all you have to do is name them, and then you can allow students to self-sign up. So that's one feature. Students can go in and assign themselves a group. Or if it's very specific, you are overseeing everything instructor, you just drag the student to the groups that you want to be in, and then students log into their in this iteration, they'll see it over in courses and groups. They'll see what groups they're to. In each group, and again, this is going to be pretty bare because right now there's one person in here. Each group has its own group page. So again, collaborations. This would be the students' group page. They have a home page. They have their announcements. They can create pages of their own. They can see who's in their group. They can do in-group discussions, add their files, have conferences, or use the collaborations that we'll get to in just a minute. And you'll be able to see this as the instructor. So you can see all of this. You have sort of unrestricted access to their groups. So if you ever needed to spot check, that a group was working or using the environment, you could do that. If a group member came and said, hey, Lynette is she's just not doing anything in this group, you could go in and see, what participation a student has to sort of just double check and facilitate. Obviously, we're not looking at students and have Big Brother 1984 experience, but you can definitely go in here and see, monitor activity, and make sure that students aren't really abusing this area. It's not yours to police. Obviously, we have adult students. There's an etiquette policy, but knowing that we have the ability to go in there and see that is great. So students can create groups their own as well, and then everything that students can see, they can really create their own home spaces in those groups, their own home pages. The group work in here, there are resources obvious to leverage. Should we decide to go that route for group work? Because obviously, I remember back to my graduate work, one of the hardest things was keeping everyone on task and collaborating. We did a lot through Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Docs, because obviously those are sort of the most universal. Almost everyone, I should say, has a Gmail address and has free access, unrestricted access to those areas. Inside of Canvas, you'll notice, and I'm sure you have noticed, Google Drive and Office 365 are turned on apps. So they're approved apps that students can use and instructors can use to connect to their courses. So if you're in a course that has collaboration, you definitely can tell students, hey, feel free to use Google Drive, feel free to use Office 365. We're ensuring that all students have access to Office 365 so that they can collaborate in sort of in a mini SharePoint way, really share files with one another have their OneDrive access so that they have some backup for their school files, and make sure that they can use this collaborative tool so that if they are working in a group, they don't have to leave the environment and worry about, oh no, is that on my work computer? Is that on my home computer? Did I submit that to the class? Or even for submissions, for assignments, let me jump in here. If they're set up that way, that students can submit, jump in here, that students can submit, there we go, different options, whatever you've got set up. So if you only want a file upload, well, then that's the only thing that students will see. They will have only the ability to upload a file, as is the case with basically every website that you upload to. Same deal. This would just bring up a file dialog, and I could check. I could select the file or folder that I want to update and upload, and it would go through. It would scan, or as we turn it in, we'll scan for plagiarism, and we'll have that snapshot, and they could submit the assignment there. A text entry, they could use the rich content editor to go through and just type that right in. Google Studio is something that I think we will start to leverage a little bit more for our maybe creative design classes, things like that. So students' videos, certain aspects of the medical courses might lend themselves well to this. But by and large, this isn't something that we would use as often. And then obviously Google Drive. I can't use this obviously right now because it's not going to connect to my Gmail, which is registered in, but it would come up and allow me to select files from my Google Drive. And the same thing is likely going to be true with Office 365. There we go. After students have created, or instructors as well, have logged this in, you could select from your OneDrive, from a SharePoint, and submit files that way. If that's set up, if that's something that that you're allowing for a submission, it would still lend itself to no matter where it's submitted from, it would still lend itself to the established rubric in the speed grader. So wherever it comes in from, it's still getting graded the same way. These are just options that we can allow students to, really make things a little easier rather than just give me a Word doc file, give me a text edit file, things like that. We can leave that and jump back in here. So again, that's collaborations. Do you want to jump back to modules, collaborations? Those are the big concepts for modules, are the collaborations. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the collaborations module. I know we're coming up on being in here for an hour, and I wanted to really give some time to this final module, and also to allow for any questions, allow for any of that, and perhaps, depending on how quickly or how, I guess, effectively we've gone through this, if there are questions and no kind of follow-ups that people want to do here in the session, then we might be able to give them our day back, which would be nice. I know I do feel bad to have to pull people away from things in the middle of the day, but again, I appreciate everyone being here. So we will go ahead and jump right into the final module, our Canvas capable, our sort of, wrap up. It not only does it expand on some of the things we'll do administratively, but it does sort of tie in all of the 6 modules, or really, 5 and change modules that we have here, to make sure that you understand and feel confident in what you're going to be able to do in Canvas. Again, we don't lose access to this course. We don't lose access to this information. None of this information goes away. It only grows. So don't feel that once you get the Canvas capable badge that your learning is done. I would hope that everyone on this call, myself included, lifelong learners, right? Always learning. So let's hop in. We start off with our roll call attendance, some of our administrative things. So roll call attendance is the feature that we're using to report attendance for census once we get into Canvas. Right now, we do it a little differently. And from what I understand, the census taking, it's a breeze, right? Everybody loves it. Super easy, super simple. No, no, it's not really ever going to be necessarily easy. Census data and attendance data is always going to be it's going to feel a bit messy, I guess. Coming from an advising background, it always felt messy to me. So there will always be that view it. But the tools we do have, roll call attendance for one, and dropout detective on the student success and retention side for another, really do help to make sure that when we do proclaim that census is taken and when we've reached the census, we're good. This class is launched. That information is accurate. So to give a view of this, I want to leave student view for just a moment. Obviously, the page doesn't change drastically. It just gives me the edit options and tells me it's published. Here on the roll call module page, it does give an overview with some screenshots on how to click around and how to find roll call and how to submit that information. How to mark people present, what the options are to mark students present for the class, whether they were fully present and on time, how to do it. Click 1 time. To mark them as not present, click 2 times. They're late 3 times. Obviously to unmark it, just don't check it, and that would be an excused absence or somebody who just maybe came in and said, listen, I'm dropping this class. And they just haven't submitted their paperwork yet. Realistically, we would mark them as not present. But also that's sort of a false positive for the retention team, because they might know that student's dropping the class. They might have declared that, but it's just, it hasn't been dropped officially, or they haven't been removed from the roster yet, which typically does happen within I've been told, a 5 to 10 minute period in Canvas, I should say. Once the student has dropped the course and the course drop has been processed in the student information system, which right now is Banner, will be campus management or campus student sometime towards the end of next year. We're moving towards that new student information system, which is going to make a lot of things a lot easier, because it's going to take all of these systems that we have and sort of bring them into one big spot. Well, sort of the goal, I suppose, is to have ADP for our HR and payroll operations, campus management to handle course assignments, student records, instructor assignments, credentialing, all of those things, and then Canvas to manage our learning management system. So going from the number of systems we do have currently to a 3-system process is a big task. So more on that later, and that again is an example of when information like this will change. But right now, obviously, if we click as the guide says, click the attendance function in this course, it will take its sweet time to load. And we can see everyone is in here. If I was going to take attendance for this course, that's when I could click these icons and toggle the attendance as it's telling me for this date. If I wanted to set it for last week, this week, if I wanted to see, a full class view, if I wanted to set up a seating chart, that might help in an on-ground course. If you've got your seating chart in class and everyone sits in the same assigned seats every week, well, sometimes it's easier to remember a face than it is a name. And so you can drag people into, their assigned seats on the grid. And then that way, you can just very quickly go through when you're looking up from from Canvas in an actual classroom, just click the students and toggle them on and off, attended or non-attended. If you had multiple classes or multiple sections of a class, you'd be able to do the drop down here and toggle between that. And again, you can just go back and forth between class view, list view, the date, and marking people, present or not present. So we'll jump back through the modules. From roll call to exporting grades to banner. This is another area where we will have some growth as we get the campus Nexus system up and running. It should be a lot easier, a lot more automatic. But for right now, this is the process. In the course, you will see over here on the left-hand side, in the course navigation, a submit grades to banner area. You'll put in the grades, which would come from the grade book, and then you would submit them. And so far as I am told right now, the LTI between Canvas and Banner communicates that information, pulls those either midterm, final grades, whichever grades you happen to have to submit, and any last dates of attendance that you enter in, would pull that all together so that it's not a manual process of writing everything down, putting it on a spreadsheet, sending it to someone, and then someone on our end has to manually enter that in. And, this will get easier with Campus Nexus. This process will get ironed out. Right now, this is sort of just a middle step, a placeholder step. So keep your eye out for any updates on here. I can't wait to update this page. It would be fantastic. Okay. In the last session, I did go through how to post an announcement. We had a little bit of extra time at the end of the last session. So this may be redundant information for some of you. I won't go so in depth as I did last time around, because obviously I don't want to speak for the content here, and I don't want to overwhelm anyone. I've been talking here for, it looks like, over an hour, and I would be surprised if everyone on this end isn't asleep and dreaming peacefully. But posting the announcement is going to be, it's a welcome announcement, or any announcement really, but mostly it's the welcome announcement that we're concerned with, at least for this example. This is your way to communicate to the class, realistically for the first time. So putting your best foot forward, the same way you would in an actual class. Perhaps for some of you who teach on ground, when we start using Canvas there, you'll have, your in-person welcome to the class. But you also want to make sure that we're putting that in Canvas as well. And that's not to duplicate efforts or to waste your time. That's really to make it so that students can still access this. If they came into the first class late, perhaps, or they missed something, they missed some information. We want to make sure that they have a space to access that outside of the classroom at any time, be it on their mobile app, be it from a browser when they're doing their work. If you said, hey, there's a change to the syllabus, we're not reading chapter 4, we're reading chapter 5. Let's make that clear here in the class so that no one feels like they missed information because maybe they were in the bathroom or perhaps had an emergency, had to take a phone call and they missed something. The welcome announcement, my biggest recommendation, you're going to do this for every class. Don't reinvent the wheel. Take the general broad strokes, write up a Word document, and then just copy and paste it in. Unless your cell phone number changes, if you provide that to students, that is, or your email changes, which it shouldn't at the university level. Maybe the best example is you may have to remember if you earn your doctorate, then you have to remember, I've earned my doctorate, not just my master's, or I shouldn't say just, but not your master's, but also you could put in there your credentials, information about yourself. Perhaps you're having another child, perhaps you've moved to a new part of the country, perhaps, whatever information you feel comfortable sharing with students in a welcome announcement that allows them to get to know you. Not a bad idea to put that on a Word doc. That way, every 5, 8, 10, whatever amount of weeks you're teaching, you don't have to go back and go, oh, I did it so well last time, I really can't remember what I wrote. And I sort of make the same recommendation to students. I did that through my graduate work and the only thing I had to keep updating is that every time I would start a new class, I started off with my daughter being, a year and a half old, and I had to, oh, she's 2 years old. Oh, she's 2.5. Oh, she's 3, and kind of, that was my one edit point, essentially. Everything else about me sort of, I guess blissfully stayed the same, but putting that information in just helps people to get to know you. So a few suggestions, by no means, a specific set of requirements, but, your contact information, a little bit about who you are, late work policy, always a good idea. And then, whatever course expectations, you might have for the student, whether it's just, we're going to learn a lot together, that kind of thing, or whether it's very specific, at the end of this course, you will be able to do X, that kind of thing. Information like that breaks it out from the norm is always a good idea. And here, this just goes through how to post that announcement. So I'll leave student view for a moment so we can actually see these things how you would see them as an instructor in a course, not as a student who's reading this information. But we'd see announcements. Right now it says not visible to students because there are no announcements in this course. Announcements do not become visible until there are announcements. That sort of makes sense. The room is not populated unless there's someone in the room, correct? So first you would go to announcements, and then you'd simply post an announcement, click the plus announcement. And again, like I walked through last week, that just opens up the rich content editor. Give your topic a title, enter in your information, format it however you like, copy and paste your information, and then make sure the formatting that you like is there. Select who to send it to. 99% of the time, it'll be all sections. If you want, you can attach a file, media file. If you want to embed one in here, you can do it. You can put in, pictures into here. You can put in other media into here. You can put links into here. Or if you wanted to just say, here's the course syllabus and attach that, that's fine too. And then you've got your options. You might not want to delay posting unless you're doing this ahead of the course opening up. You don't need to delay posting. You don't need to enable the podcast feed. Podcasts, despite being everywhere, I don't know that students are subscribing to announcement podcasts for their courses. And allowing liking is always, and like I said last week, a very personal decision. It a little like the social media culture we have. That's entirely up to you. If you want people to be able to tell you how many people like your post, that's great. If you're someone who doesn't get hurt, I guess, or upset by having no likes to a post, then that's fine too. Maybe you're a bit stronger of a person, but that's a subjective area for sure. All right. Let's hop back to posting the welcome announcement. Again, all of that information is right here. The course concludes with kind of a wrap-up quiz, a little bit of information from every module. And once you've done that, you can get your badge. We've got our badges outlined here, our six badges. And then, we're able to see that, oh, sorry, the leaderboard progress. always click leaderboard because this just looks like a leaderboard to me when it comes up. But we can see, you know, those instructors that have gotten badges, things like that. This is what I can see, and our other academic directors will be able to see, because that's part of tracking this professional development. Once we get into Canvas, obviously right now, you know, there's not much you can do if you can't get into Canvas, but as you're earning badges, again, my virtual door, my inbox, my email is wide open. I'm here for any questions. I'm here for whatever you might need while you're navigating this. You know, it's a big undertaking, and you know, we're all in it together. There's always room for improvement. By no means is this information, you know, going to stay the way it is. If there's something that I'm getting feedback wise from instructors that informs me that I need to change some language, or I need to go ahead and put in some different things, maybe adjust a guide, maybe put an actual, you know, kind of video walkthrough in there, I'm more than happy to do it. This is your resource so that you feel comfortable with what we're asking you to teach in, or I guess the environment we're asking you to teach in. Right. I'm really hoping my mic wasn't crackling that whole time. Thank you, David Landis, for letting me know that. Excellent. I will go ahead and stop talking for a moment. If anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. If not, you know, we can move right along. But this is your time. All right, we are all off to dreamland, which is totally fine. That's a lot of information today that we went over, and I understand it might be a little difficult to process everything. That's totally fine. I get it. I'm usually of the kind that I was jotting down notes during every presentation, and then it wasn't until hours later that all of a sudden something popped up in my head, and I, you know, had to follow up. And please, you know, I will go ahead right now and put my email right into the chat. Feel free to send me anything that may come up, anything on your mind. Usually takes about an hour or so for the recording to render down, and then I pop it into our team shared YouTube channel to host it, and then send out the Google Forms. So, you know, again, if you don't want to complete the Google form because you've done this recording, this webinar, and you just want to watch the recording, that's absolutely fine. You know, it'll still be there as Elizabeth. Thank you very much for sending out modules 1, 2, and 3. And you are absolutely right. Practice will make perfect. So now we just need to get you into the environment to allow you to practice. That's the next thing. I thought that would be done by this week, but the CIE thing took up a little bit more time than we wanted to. All right. If there are no questions, again, I apologize if the sound quality is crackling out. I hope that's not the case. I'll review this recording, and if I have to, I'll set up another session. I apologize for that. If anyone has any questions, feel free. We got a few more minutes. If not, I'll give back 15 minutes of the day. I apologize, it wasn't more. All right, perfect. Excellent, everyone. Thank you so much again for attending. The recording will be sent out shortly, and please feel free to access it. My email's there in the chat. You can definitely find me in the directory as well. It's under William Lynch. I go by Bill. Bill's fine. You don't have to call me Professor Lynch. Any questions? Anything else that I can help with? Thank you again to Dr. Nodarse and Amparo for kind of facilitating this and for supporting all of these endeavors and for supporting everyone. All right. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye. Recording.